You want to just yep.
Testing. Still testing. I can't hear myself, but maybe y'all can hear me. Well, I mean, you can certainly hear me because I'm kind of yelling, but I don't know if you can hear me through a speaker. Yes. Okay. I heard it. Awesome. All right, y'all. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming out. This is a Web Geeks event. It is the second Monday of the month, and on the second Monday of the month, every month, we have an event here at Source Allies. The format of these events are kind of all over the board. We sometimes do open forum discussions. Sometimes we do like a hackathon type thing, and sometimes, like today, we have a presenter, presenters, pluralized. Web Geeks focuses on new trends and techniques within the web development industry in this field. So if there's ever anything you want to hear more about, or if you yourself want to speak on, please let us know. We have a site we used called Sessionize. I'm gonna guess that on our blog, you can find a link to it. I don't even know if that's true, but probably on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is kind of the place where we post a lot of stuff these days and are much more active on if you're looking for information about our next and upcoming events. So yeah, if there's ever a thing that you want to talk on or you want to see a talk crafted around, let us know and we'll do our best to accommodate. It is October. In November, we have a speaker, but in December, we do this annual thing each year where it's more of like I don't know, a whole bunch of like a show and share is what we historically have called it. This is a time where we say, hey, you got something cool you've been working on? Come show it off, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, whatever, and share it with the group, share it with the community. And anything's fair game. It doesn't matter if it is software engineer related, or maybe you're a knitter, and you really like knitting, and you have this cool project you want to show off. In fact, someone did. What did they do? They knitted the scarf of. I don't even watch the show. It's with the yes, Doctor Who scarf, the really long scarf. They didn't get all the way through it, but anyway, they showed off the project and it was pretty awesome. During that time, I, in fact, will be screen printing. This is a hobby of mine. This is something I enjoy doing, and you are all welcome to come join and find out how to screen print. We'll do our best to supply some shirts and even maybe just like some pieces of paper. You can make a print on that and take that home, whatever. It's kind of fun. Please come out. And this is in December. Beyond that, I think Ben, if you have anything to say about Source Allies or just anything else?
Thank you, Justin. Hi, everybody. My name is Ben. I am a recruiter here at Source Allies. If I don't know you, there's a lot of frequent flyers here, but if I don't know you, come on up, shake my hand, say hi afterwards. Would love to get to know you. We love hosting Web Geeks here at Source. We also host a couple other user groups here. We host Piowa, SciJug, DevOps Des Moines. So come on out. We always offer sponsored food and drinks. If you don't know, back in the electrical room, there's a fridge. You can grab anything you like. Pizza, grab some, or I'll force you to take it home. Yeah, so if you would like to speak, we're always looking for speakers. We're booked for 2025, but we're open for 2026. If you've never given a talk before and you want to give it a shot, talk to us. We can help you put a talk together. We can support you. Anything you like, be part of the community and present to our community. We want you to be a part of it. If you know people who want to speak, connect them with us on LinkedIn, again, with our Sessionize and stuff. If you need the Wi-Fi code, it's over there. Hopefully you didn't miss the big bold letters Joseph wrote up there. If you need a restroom, it's out that door and up 1 or 2 flights. If the first floor is booked, you can go up to the second floor. Um, December event is really fun. I've gone to it for the last 3 years that I've co-organized with Justin. I've always suggested doing a white elephant gift exchange thing, but we haven't done that yet. So maybe we will this year. But you get cool shirts that Justin prints here for you. You can even help print them, and it's cool to see all the projects everybody puts together. So I hope you join us in December. But TLDR, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so our presenters can come on up. The only thing I'd say is definitely try and speak into the mic and these mics and hold it kind of close to your mouth as well. The talk and everything, and this is for you all as well. We stream this live on twitch.com/DSMWebGeeks. That'll be up for 2 more weeks. And then it'll come down, and then it'll sit on my computer forever. And eventually I may upload it to YouTube. So nobody can hear you on the recording unless you're talking into a mic. So go for it.
All right.
Try to turn this off.
Can we get a thumbs up from Joseph on? Can you hear us through the mic?
Testing.
Yeah, we have Kip. That's an important one. Testing. Push button.
Okay, you need to hold it, so you can turn it off.
Holding button. Has it been long enough?
Yes.
Releasing.
Now tap it to unmute it.
Tap it to unmute.
Tapping, talking. There we go. Success.
All right. Okay. I'm trying to find this share button. I think I found it. Okay.
It looks like you're sharing your screen now.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of tag teaming back and forth on these. Our topic for today, we're talking about vetting use cases using AWS Bedrock. How many of you guys have used Bedrock before or are familiar with what it is? Got one hand, a few hands? Okay. So for those of you who don't know, AWS has a managed service where they have a bunch of like frontier models that are deployed, you can get access to and use it for testing. So then you connect, authenticate, send your information over, they will process it and send you back the results. So instead of having your own local model or paying for expensive subscription, if you're wanting to just do a small one-off, it's with relatively easy setup. That's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yep. My name is Kip. I'm one of the architects at Source Allies.
Sorry.
Yep.
Learning how this works.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we can start off. Okay. Now, why do we need to vet Gen AI use case before scaling? One of the things that probably is usually Gen AI is very powerful. There's a lot of things you can do with it. We need to save time. We need to reduce cost, and we need to make sure that things are going to work. We don't want to create things and then throw them away. We want to make sure that we are creating them iteratively and validate them really quick. Next.
So I was a little bit out of order. What you're expecting this session? We'll use AWS Bedrock, connect to it using infrastructure as code, using Python, and go through some test cases.
As
kind of skipped ahead a little
bit. Jonathan has also mentioned that what Bedrock is, it's an AWS managed service that you can easily spin it up in AWS. It runs on an EC2 instance. So you should be able to really quickly get into it and be able to interact it really fast. And you can get into models. I hope we know what models mean in this instance, things like Anthropic, Meta, there's Amazon Nova, and so on.
So one of the reasons why we're talking about using Bedrock, there's minimal setup. I guess it says no overhead, debatable. but effectively you don't have to manage a lot of the infrastructure. It's already there. And when we get to the examples, you can see switching from one model to another is a one-line change. So as long as the model is supported and you have access to it, then it's very easy to change. So you can, if you want to vet a case against 5 different models, that's pretty easy to do.
Yep. And so we want to do it really quick. We don't want to set up VPC subnet, get rid of the complex role and so on. So we just need to say, get into it and move fast. So in this use case, you can use CloudForm or Terraform to provision your instances. So one thing that with AWS, you have to provision a role. You might need an S3 bucket most of the time. And so why we use TIC is that we need to be able to do things faster. We need to, AWS, you can treat your accounts as kettle. You can create them, destroy them as much as you want. Avoid deleting things so that you don't incur any costs. Okay, next. Oh, yep. Now we get into the meat of the presentation. So I personally like Terraform. And so I use Terraform most of the time to do a lot of stuff. So one of the things that with Terraform, one thing you need to, how many of us are familiar with Terraform before all right, yep. So Terraform is an IAC platform. It provides you with the ability to create your AWS resources, not only AWS, so many other things like you want to create your Azure things and in so many other environments that GitHub and so many other things. So one thing you need to provide to Terraform is tell Terraform that I am going to be working on AWS. So I have this repo shared and I'll share it with you guys at the end of this presentation and you can be able to access it. So the next thing you need to do, why is my
down working?
It's not going to the next one. Okay. All right. Now, so as with AWS things, you need to provide a role. Usually, you can use a user who has access to AWS resources, but in this case, it's easy for you to use a role because you can define the policies or what we call permissions that your SageMaker instance will need to use. So for example, these are the two basic roles, access policy that needs SageMaker full access. I just gave it that one. And then ability to access Bedrock. Let's go to the next one. Now, we need to create our notebook instance. As I said before, it's an EC2 instance. And you would be able to access your instance. So I have run this through before because creating an EC2 instance might take some time, especially with, so I have my, I'm going to share this. I might need to share again. All right, so I have my, this is the repo, so I have all the things that I need. I have an action that actually runs this, and it's inside one of these. So it's able to run Terraform, run all the resources, and this is probably not very clear enough from my end. So, and this is what I had shown before. So inside here, there are Terraform code that are being applied. And what you get is, let's see, this is, so another, how do you access Terraform? How do you access your AWS? One way is to use probably your company's, you might have an educative account that is an academic account. One of them is, he's going to show you another way. So one of the way is just to use Cloud Guru. This is a socialized thing. So we have a sandbox account that we can create it, last for 4 hours and destroy it. If you have got cloud, same thing. And I am going to go to show you guys what those Terraform resources went in and created. So you click some few buttons and we have our EC2 instance running, that's SageMaker instances. At T2, it's the cheapest. And you can open your notebooks. So this is, the notebooks is where you probably want to perform your things. And give it a moment. It's a small EC2 instance, so it might take some time to load. And let's see. So this one doesn't, like, this is the easiest way. You don't have to say SSO configured, do some other things. Again, it's going to take some time. And I'm just going to use that. And let's say, just going to test it, S3 API list. Just making sure I can access this AWS inside here without creating a connection. Oh, AWS S3 API list. I think that should work. Yep, he's going to show you another way to access an AWS account.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Oh, I have to send a request. Where did the request go? I sent it somewhere. Okay. Yep. Entire screen desktop one. Sure, what can go wrong? I'm seeing a lot of exclamation marks.
You might want to reconnect, something like that.
Yeah, okay, so I need permissions. Yep, so I'm going to quit, reopen. I'll be right back. No, I'm not updating. Okay, bear with me as I resolve this issue.
I might play around this meanwhile.
I think I'm back.
You're back, okay.
Sharing.
Okay.
Can you see my screen? Incomplete with random requests, sure. Okay. So one of the things, as Kip was walking through, if you have an Cloud Guru account, or I think it's Pluralsight now, they got acquired, if I recall correctly, you can use that and have like a one button spin up where it's very easy to get started. However, if you don't have that account, or if you don't want to use that account because you want to have more control, or for any reasons, you can also create an AWS account. So I'm going to be kind of walking through some of the basics of getting one of those set up. How many of you guys have tried to set up an AWS account before? Okay, lots of you guys. How many of you guys consider it easy to do? We got a few, okay. It's something that it varies widely. Ask anyone who's set up an AWS account, sometimes they'll be like, oh, it's great experience, everything went perfectly. Other times it's somebody's pulling their hair out of like, I have these two things, why aren't they talking? So my goal is to kind of walk through some of the steps and kind of talk through some of the gotchas that you might run into. Or if you haven't done it for a while, I had not set up an account for a few years and they changed everything. So this was an interesting experience for me. So going through your basic stuff, you request it, you put an email, sends you something, create your password. Our first fork in the road. This was new to me. They have two different types of account now. So you have your free 6-month period where they'll give you some credit. Everything is free. And if you don't have to worry about, you made a mistake and now you have a huge bill because you make a mistake when you're programming, you have a while loop that doesn't exit. You crash, maybe you have to close it and reopen it. You make the same mistake on something that's having cloud spend involved, and you might have a very expensive bill. So the free account caps that. I don't know. Can you guys read this? Yeah. Okay. Some of this font looks, maybe the glasses are not for show, but you receive some credits. And what happens is there's a mechanism built into the free account where if you exceed that amount of credits you have, it just kills the account. It doesn't exceed it. So you don't get a big bill. If you mess something up, you just lose your account. And they will, once you use the credits, or if you go past 6 months, then it will automatically close. They're designed to be temporary, not permanent. You also have the paid path, where once again, the paid path still has free tier. It's not like a monthly charge type thing, but it means when you hit that cap, instead of it closing your account, it just starts billing you. So you can choose your own adventure. Do you want to risk your account being closed if you run out of spend, or risk your credit card getting surprise fees? And so I wanted to mention that even if you do the free account, it will still ask you for a credit card. And the reason for that is they want to prevent fraud. And so they do a $1 hold, which they will then return. If you are very concerned and you are afraid that the $1 hold is not actually going to be a $1 hold and who knows what's going to happen, what I used to do is I do prepaid Visa cards where you can say like, I'm going to invest $500 in this account or $50 or $20 or whatever it is. And then AWS's policy was as soon as you build that, if it was a prepaid card, they couldn't charge you anymore. They would kill your account. Otherwise, they just keep billing you. They now have that baked in, so you don't have to mess with prepaid cards and all the other fun stuff. Jump through these hoops, you get the congratulations message. You're done, right? No. Now you have an account with no resources, nothing set up. So this is the console home. This is what it looks like at first. There are two different paths you can take, and this causes a lot of confusion from people I've talked to. Have this slide, a tale of two IAMs. Identity access management is how you can create users, create your policies, all that fun stuff in the traditional manner. They used to have something that was AWS SSO that they rolled out with, they had AWS orgs added. They have renamed that to be IAM Identity Center. So now you have IAM and IAM Identity Center. They are completely different and they don't really talk to each other or play nice with each other. It's you use one or the other for the most parts. There are some exceptions, as always. So if you are going down this route, enabling Identity Center, it's going to ask you a question on, do you want to have AWS org route or do you want to have a standalone account? Almost all the documentation you're going to find is for AWS orgs, not standalone accounts. So just giving that disclaimer, you can make a standalone account, just realize that you will then be troubleshooting without the aid of a lot of the documentation. Make AWS org, it's going to be maybe more convoluted than you feel like you need for just an individual project, but it's not the end of the world. For this route, I'm going to go down the non-AWS org route because there's already documentation for that. So I'm going to go down the other route. In this case, you get this lovely screen with a bunch of things that are, I thought would come through a little bit larger than that. But one of the key things about it, it will say confirm your identity. You can set up your auth. There's a bunch of different routes you can do. To make it actually useful, you have to create a user. So that's the bottom slide over here. I made Jonathan Stoner. That's an account for myself. And you can see its status is enabled. Once it does that, you then have multiple steps going back and forth. There's going to be email. It will send you an email. You have verification code. You put the verification code is. It's pretty much follow the steps as you go. Once you get through that, though, you will get the ability to set up your AWS account. So down here, there is a console that is far more blurry than I anticipated. There's an AWS CLI that you can use. So if you want to do AWS SSO, that uses the AWS orgs path. You can also do an AWS configure and set up a secret and password, or a user account and secret. That's what I'm doing for here. Once you go through that, it will open up a web page, go through the whatever your credentials are, and you get to this, do you allow access? If so, CLI has been given request permissions. And once you get to that point, you can now use AWS resources directly from your console. You don't have to go through their web interface and click through the bunch of menus. And that's where you can tie it into your infrastructure as code, as Kip was showing with Terraform and some other things. In this case, what we're going to be using it for is AWS Bedrock. So you're going to have to request some models. They are going to be changing this soon, so I wanted to include that disclaimer of everything will probably change by the time you try to use this. That is how AWS works. So embrace the change and breaking changes as they come. But this is actually a change I'm very happy for. What they currently do is anytime you set up this account, you then have to go in and individually add each model, and you have to request, and they have different provisioning, and some of them will say things like you have a cross-site inference account because it's not in your region, and there's a bunch of different things that can cause some problems. What they're going to be doing is making it so all of them are added by default. And so you already have that. You don't have to go through the steps. But until then, you have to select your models and request them. Before I go further, questions at this point, is this making sense? Okay, so to recap briefly, we have an AWS account, we've made a user, we've authenticated that user, so now our CLI has the same permissions as we set up for our user. In this case, I gave it far more permissions than it probably should have had and gave it some admin access, and then gave it a bunch of bedrocks. You can also fine tune it. I skipped over that. I requested access, and you can see this is now going through the steps. So it's request your models, you go through, there's then a confirm of, yes, these are the ones you're asking for. And then we go back to how do you, just because you've created those, if you go the AWS org route, you can set up a bunch of permissions for making your organization have your user accounts, which have connections to resources. If you go standalone account, you can set up access keys. And so that's what I have here. So there's the access key on the left, and then the secret, which I'm not showing on the right. With that, we're going to some code. So here is my local notebook. I'm using an interactive Python notebook. And can I move this out of the way? I have a very short README here. I'm just using it to install Python virtual environment, source it, and then using Postgres to install some dependencies. I grabbed the dependencies from another project, so it's definitely importing some things that are not needed for this simple demo. But here we have our setup. So key thing to note here is Bodo3. That is what we're using to access the AWS CLI from our Python code. We're also going to be using some LangChain things to simplify some things. So if I were to go through the way that these cells work, if you guys haven't used Python notebooks before, you can add different cells, you can run them individually, and then you can see the results under each of them. So in this case, it took 0 seconds. It's just running through some imports. I think so. If I do that, is that? Okay, thank you. And I'm also going to dismiss this console. We don't need that right now. So we talked about Bodo3. We created the key. In this case, it's demo key. I'm using EAST2. And so if I run this, connects, and this is the sanity check of, did it actually connect, or did it just give you a green check mark of, yep, everything's fine. So I'm just using this call to call identity. So it's whoever I've authenticated as, who is it? In this case, I get my user ID back, I get my account, my Amazon resource, and then I get some metadata on that. But it's enough to show that, yes, indeed, I am connected. Everything's working as intended. With that, we move into models. I mentioned it in the intro. If you want to change to a different model, it's a one-line change. Here are some examples of different models. You can look these up from the AWS Bedrock models. And these are a few of the different ones that I have been doing some playing with locally. In this case, we're going to use index 4, so we're using the Nova Lite. That's one of a cheaper and faster model. It can do a little bit of text and vision, but it should be enough for what we're going to be doing today. Making a Bedrock client, once again, it's using Bodo3. Here we're making an LLM object. And so we're going to be doing a lot of the heavy lifting with this chat Bedrock converse. This is an API that you can look into. There's a bunch of different options it has. I'm going to be using a very simplified version of it today, where I'm passing in, this is the client I'm using, this is the model. I'm setting a cap on my token so I don't feed through more than I'm expecting. Temperature and top P, these are settings where you can change how much flexibility does it have in interpreting what you tell it. So the temperature, the higher the temperature, the more creative freedom it has. In this case, I'm using it for, I give it instructions, I want results, so I have it very low temperature. I don't want it taking liberties with my instructions. I want it following the instructions and doing the task I told it to do. We're going to start off with, here's a simple prompt. If I run this, you can pass in, here's some text. I'm just using a formatted string. Give it, this is just plain text. This isn't a programming language. Describe it in some way that you expect it to understand. That LLM object we just made, we're going to invoke it with passing the prompt and get a response. We're just printing that response. So in this case, I'm giving instructions saying your personal assistant, who is an expert at suggesting creative names, because I'm not. And I'm hoping that this will help me come up with names for project. One of the things to note is if you're used to using chat clients, GPT, whatever your flavor of choice is, they retain context. So you ask a question, it gives you an answer, it remembers what you just talked about. You ask the next question, you go off of this. Bedrock, by default, it's not going to maintain any context whatsoever. So every time you talk to it, you send it a message. It's like it's the first time you've ever talked to it. So it's responding with, hey, absolutely, it's positive, it's trying to help me, but it has no context of anything that I'm working on, so it can't possibly suggest a meaningful name for a project it knows nothing about. If I want to give it, here's a variable, I give it some project info. I'm working on a website to promote a card game I designed. I now pass that in, and you can see here we're giving it some structured information, project information, same prompt. Now this time it's going to say, sounds interesting, and now it's trying to select. However, I also gave it the ability to ask questions before it gives me an answer. If it needs to know more information, And so you can see it's still not ready to commit something. And we can go back and forth with this, giving more context, answering questions. But like I was saying, any answer it has or any additional context, you're going to have to feed it back in because by default, it's not going to track any of that. This can get a little bit tedious with unstructured data. And so there's a lot of ways you can structure it to make it a little bit easier to follow. And so we're going to be introducing LangChain, human and system messages. Human message is what is the human sending to the bot or the LLM, in this case, the model. And system messages are instructions you're giving to the model. So these are things it's supposed to follow. In this case, if I comment these out, we're going to start off with just the human message. So the human types in, what is my favorite color? If I run this, I'm going to clear all outputs so you can't see the results of previous iterations. What would you expect it to do? Once again, it has no context. I'm just asking a message, what's my favorite color? Yeah. So I run this, and sure enough, I don't have access to personal information about you. It tries to say very polite, I have no clue. Why are you asking me? We give it a little more context. Now we give it a system message. Now it knows my favorite color is blue. We've had a previous conversation, or I'm just passing that in. I now ask it again, based off your statement, it seems that your favorite color is blue. So it knows that previous context because we passed it in. However, that's a very long response, and I was asking a short question, and it scrolls and scrolls and scrolls. You've probably run into this before with sometimes LLMs like to be a little verbose. So we give it this final instruction of you are an expert in being concise. And now we run this again, and now we get blue. So a lot of these, you play around with them and figure out what is the problem you're trying to solve. And then you tweak these system messages, and you can go from that is not at all usable to, yes, it's finally answering what I want it to do. Brings us to our talk. We're talking about vetting use cases, not just how to use these tools, but why are you using these tools? What are you going to be doing with them? It's fun to mess around with what's my favorite color, maybe making a bot that helps you come up with more creative names for your projects so you can save time on project names and variable names and all other areas that sometimes stop us dead. What's an example that somebody wants to volunteer of a type of project where you might want to train an LLM? And when I say train, I don't actually mean fine tuning. I'm talking about prompt engineering, of coming up with some system prompts to constrain its behavior to get a useful result. Any volunteers? Rephrase the question. What's an example? Yeah. What's an example of how you might want to use a local model or a Bedrock model to test and vet some use case in your own life?
Well, what are the advantages of using that over the traditional method, right?
So help me out. What's traditional method? Is that using talking to a friend, talking?
Yeah.
Okay. Your friend might be asleep. It might be in the middle of the night where you woke up. But yeah, I'm not advocating for using this in place of brainstorming, notebook and paper, using Google to search something, talking to a friend, talking to a mentor. This is an additional tool. We have a hand. Okay, I have a dumb question. I don't want my friend to think I'm dumb. So there's a lot of different reasons where you might want to have something. A recent case that I had is I have a 3-month-old daughter now. And when came from the hospital, there's a lot of time where I was spending holding her with her sleeping on me and thinking, this is great holding her, but I'd also like to be doing something. But I was also low sleep and I did not want to work on something that it mattered what the consequences were. So I started making a card game. And I had one hand to be typing and one hand to be holding. And so I was trying to figure out with my limited capacity, what is something that I could do? In this case, I made a basic LLM call and started setting up some framework for, I want to make a game. Can you simulate some results for me? And then instead of it being I'm doing this all very tediously, I could say, here's an idea. It's a 2-player game. Here are the rules. Play 100 games and let me know what the balance was. Did first player have an advantage over second player? Things like that. And so I was just coming up with some very basic, I've made games before. I know the types of things that often go wrong when I'm not paying attention. Can I set up some guardrails? We also call them evals, and then let it run and then give me the results. So instead of me going through tediously doing that, I can let it go through tediously doing that.
Other uses you've done.
So I'm going to restrict this to just personal life. I've also used it professionally for a bunch of things for vetting cases for companies. Personally, I've used it for generating graphics. I've used it for generating instructions. I've used it for making manuals for myself, for reminders, for helping me brainstorm. I'm currently in the process of integrating it to my note-taking solutions. So I have, are any of you guys familiar with the PAR method? Okay, Tiago Forte, I recommend his stuff. Talks about building a second brain or power method. And it's a way of organizing information. So 2 acronyms I'm going to share: code, capture, or organize, distill, and express the ways you can interact with information. One of the ways of organizing is PARA. It stands for project, area, resource, and archive. And those are the different ways you can act on that information. Projects are time bounded, so there's something you're trying to accomplish. Areas are minimum levels of responsibility what you want to maintain, so I must maintain the standard. Resources are, I want to use it, it seems interesting, I have no clue where. And archive is everything that is not currently being worked on. So in this case, back to the how I'm using model, is I can set up this framework of these are the rules of how the system's supposed to work. And I'm trying to use it to reduce the tedium of, okay, now I need to move this over here, now I need to add this. I can say, hey, I got to the end of a very long day, I'm working on my side project, where did I leave off? And the model has the context that it can tell me, these were the steps you were working on, you were on step 3, this is the pain point you had, here's some suggestions on how to get past it. Yep. So ChatGPT, you have your ready-made, you can do this stuff, you can plug it in, type away. In fact, that's where I started. A lot of these things that I'm mentioning, I started using ChatGPT and seeing what type of results can I get. And the answer is, as my project got larger and larger, I started having context bleed. There's a concept with LLMs where you have, the more context you give it, great, now it knows more things. And now at some point, it starts having way too much context, and it starts, you ask it one question and it remembers an answer you gave it from 3 years ago that has nothing to do with your current problem, but it thinks it's relevant because it can't differentiate all that well. There's a lot of different techniques you can use to reduce context bleed, but one of them is siloing, or in this case, you can set up Bedrock where I started off with, it knows absolutely nothing about the other context. It only gets fed in what you want. And so if you were going to make like your own RAG model or something like that, you can then have very clear instructions on this project. I have these instructions. For this project, I have these instructions. And so I'm currently working on finishing my house. So I have a house construction thing where it's helping me keep track of that. I'm working on a game, has that. I have things that I'm trying to learn. These are resources I'm putting together for educational stuff. And it was starting to merge the context. And so I'd ask it about my card game and it'd tell me something about my house construction. I'm like, I don't want to know that. That's not relevant. Please stop doing that. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I went more towards a controlled programmatic approach. Yeah, so if you're restricting it, saying don't remember any of this, your memories, and just use here are the files and you're passing that in, you can keep it a little bit cleaner, but then that defeats the purpose of having it all in one place. Now you're having a bunch of files that you're maintaining, at which point you might as well go a little bit further and have some structure.
Mm-hmm. I probably have an example, and our use cases inside here at Socialize is there is a place where you reach at the end and you need the model to access internal data, like HR data and such other things. That's when you start needing it. For example, for us, we need a Wi-Fi code like that one. We ask our models. We no longer have to ask someone to generate for us. The lights, you can hook it into your model and create a Lambda function, an API, or maybe an IoT core or something. And then from there, you would be able to ask questions about your lights, say which lights is being turned on at the moment. And it will probably structure in a human form. And I think in one of our use cases, must have been from the guy sitting behind there, worked on it. It should be on our website. Someone needed to ask, how many pizzas are we selling between 12 of 5 to 12, between 12 of 5 to 12 of 10? Querying such data will tell you, oh, you might think that the case is across the street is the one that's selling most of the pizzas, but it will tell you something totally different. Oh, we sell coffee here.
Another thing to note, if you're building your own solution like this, getting started, MCP tools are something that I've been playing around with more and more recently. Effectively, it's a protocol that's designed for securely taking a programmer, think like an API type endpoint, but instead of exposing it to, maybe you have a microservice that you're exposing, it's a tool that you can then expose to your LLM. So then your LLM has a description of this is how you can use this tool. Example of Wi-Fi generation. There's a lot of different things you can use where you can make a very small discrete unit that's like, this works well for this one case. Here's the description of how it's used. This is when it should be used. And then I'm playing around with a talk currently where it's with dice rollers, where you can make a basic tool for rolling dice, and then you can see as you add more and more complexity to it, how it balances the different factors. So there's a lot of areas where this is the starting point, but you don't have to stop at the starting point. You use that and keep building out.
I think it's like you can add a lot of programming to the way that you interact with the model.
Yeah.
Say if the model answers this one way, then you can go and use a completely different set of instructions.
Yep.
You can ask the user, do you want option 1, 2, or 3, and then they can respond, and then you can do something, send that back to the model with different information, and you really can add logic.
Yeah.
Maybe is what we're saying, the way you interact with the agent.
Yep. One of the ways I've used this professionally is you have a use case where somebody's saying, I need this task done within my organization. It seems like it would be a good fit for generative AI. Which models do we use? What type of results should we expect to get? And that's where I was showing you have multiple models you can plug into it. So new model comes out, you just add another line, and now you can test with the new model and you can compare the accuracy of maybe you're using GPT-5 and it seems to be working decently, but maybe it doesn't always get things right. If you were then trying to do that entire test case in a different model, that would be much harder if you're going from OpenAI to Anthropic now. Now you have a different interface. Now you have a different this. This way you have one line change, and now you have a different model as long as it's supported by Bedrock.
How often, or what is your typical like thought process around when you determine when you want to switch to a different model versus just focusing on prompt engineering or testing the temperature?
Yep. Like that? So one of the things to note is your temperature and your prompt engineering, that will affect all the models equally because they're all getting the same prompt, they're all getting the same temperature. And so actually we'll run them in parallel. So it's here's my current prompt, here's my current temperature, here's my current settings as I'm working the prompt engineering. And I've run it with 5 different models. And I can see the results, which ones are doing well with this use case. Can I identify things where it's this type of problem lends itself to these types of models? So an example is, let's say you have image processing. You get a PDF where somebody snapped a picture of a document with their phone. It's on a desk. Maybe there's a lot of noise in the environment. Maybe the page is turned sideways. You want to run that into your model and say, I know there's structured information in here. I'm trying to extract that out. And so I'm taking unstructured data of this grainy image and turning it into structured data. How accurate is it? You can look at the page yourself, give it a scorecard of this is what it should come out. Now you have your score. You run it against those models and you see how close do they get. Maybe this one came back with 90%. Maybe this one came back with 70%. Maybe this one got 20% right. You know, you tweak your prompt and you can see how does that affect the different models. So maybe add some pre-processing. Add some things to go, okay, I'm going to do a word frequency analysis. I know these are the types of words that are likely to show up in the document. I know that they should be upright. So if I identify them and they're not upright, then that means the page is rotated. I'm going to do pre-processing stuff for rotating the image. You go through all this and then feed it the cleaned up results to models and see how do they do. And there's a lot of iteration you can do and see as you get the results better and better. And once you get them good enough, you can stop working on it because you can spend endlessly trying to clean up data. And the thing that I like to keep in mind is there's a purpose for this data. There's a purpose for this transformation. What are the requirements to get there? And then as soon as I get there, how can I leverage that instead of continuing to spend more and more time and money on refining something that doesn't need to be refined?
There's a lot of like benchmarks that people publish, and there's a lot of like bloggers, they'll say, this model's better at writing.
Yeah.
This model's better at thinking. This model's better at reasoning. And so like there's information out there that even says like,
yeah,
how do you kind of get started in thinking about how they think?
The models themselves will have kind of areas, like think of them as like tags. This one's good at vision. This one's good at text. This one's good at video processing. There's also, as you mentioned, benchmarks. There's even like, this is good at agriculture. It knows the agriculture terms. This one's good with insurance claims. So there's a lot of information if you're looking for, what do other people say about these models? This is a way you can vet it. How do I know about it myself? You don't have to take their word for it. You can run the test yourself.
You mentioned that your Bedrock configure page show prototype. Have you used Bedrock for any kind of production level application?
Yes.
So if that's the case, what kind of, I guess, differences or gotchas have you ran into with that in that situation?
Yeah, so you're not going to be running the notebook on your local machine at that point. You're going to have spin up a whole account, and you're going to have a lot of different resources, and that's where the infrastructure as code comes in really handy. So you're not going through clicking through menus and okay, add this and add this. You can set up here's my plan. My local notebook is now, this is maybe a Lambda function. Maybe this is, maybe you have your S3 bucket be your input. Maybe you have some listeners on that of, I upload a new thing. There's a listener that detects that, runs it through this Lambda function, goes through the pre-processing, and then calls the Bedrock model, does eval on that, sees are the results good? If so, has a decision tree. You can flesh this out and have a whole lot of different aspects to it. But a lot of the core principles are still going to be the same. Instead of it being a notebook running locally on your machine, maybe it's a orchestrated containerized app. But you're still going to have the discrete points where you're going to go, here's a prompt, here's the input, here's the model. Here's the results. Here's the evaluation on are those results what I was expecting to get? If not, what do I do about it? So you can get a lot of leverage on just testing the stuff locally and learning about how it works.
Concern yourself with the models becoming deprecated and being replaced with versions, and if so, do you have to run to like keep
Yep.
up with that?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you have like Sonnet,
Yeah.
Anthropic has models that are coming out regularly. Opus 4.1 dropped recently.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of things where that's where that's handy to have that one line change. Maybe the latest and greatest was 3.5 at one point. Now they have 4, they have 4.1. One line change. Now you get the new evals. In fact, keep the old one, add it on, and now you can compare. Where was it before? Where is it now? Maybe that's a new latest greatest model. They have a bunch of improvements and none of them affect your use case. And it's good to know before you go for a more expensive, shiny thing to know, does it actually help? Any other questions? I think we're good to wrap up then.
Yep.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you all very much for hanging with us. Again, that the whole talk and everything is on will be on Twitch / DSM Web Geeks for the next 2 weeks, and then maybe in a year or so I'll post it on YouTube. So please hang out, grab some pizza for a little bit longer, and thank you all for coming out, and hopefully you can join us back next month. Thank you.
There's no trying to use the set up an AI workflow to get those on the on the YouTube.
Yeah. Yes.